The Chicago Bears have been making serious moves this offseason, but with every big contract they hand out, their salary cap takes a hit. Just a week ago, this team had nearly $80 million in cap space, one of the highest figures in the league. Now, after signing key players, that number has dropped to around $40 million. But do not let that number fool you. The Bears are still in a strong financial position heading into free agency. The journey to cap health. General Manager Ryan Poles has done a great job managing this team's money. When he took over, the Bears had one of the worst cap situations in the National Football League. Years of mismanagement left them with dead money tied to players who were not even on the roster anymore. That is not a sustainable way to build a winning team. So Poles made the tough decision to clean house, move on from expensive contracts, and start fresh. It was a painful process, but now the Bears have one of the healthiest cap situations in the league. Poles had to make difficult decisions, cutting ties with beloved veterans and avoiding flashy signings that could have hurt the team long-term. Instead of handing out massive contracts to players past their prime, he focused on building a young, competitive roster with flexibility. This strategy has allowed the Bears to maneuver freely in the market while still keeping the core of their team intact. However, after making aggressive moves in free agency, including signing top-tier offensive linemen Joe Thuney and Jonah Jackson, the team has less flexibility than before. Protecting the quarterback is always a smart investment, and the Bears knew they needed to improve the offensive line, but with less money to work with, they have to be strategic about their next moves. They cannot afford to make careless decisions, especially with critical areas still needing improvement. The question now is simple. Can the Bears still afford to chase a big-name free agent? Or will they need to restructure contracts or even trade some players to create more space? Let's break down their options in detail. The art of creating cap space. One way to create more salary cap room is by restructuring contracts. This is a common practice in the National Football League, where teams take a portion of a player's salary and convert it into a signing bonus. That money is then spread out over the remaining years of the contract, reducing the immediate cap hit. The Bears have several players whose contracts could be restructured to free up space, but each move has consequences. The first and most obvious candidate is Montez Sweat. His base salary for this season is nearly $21 million. If the Bears convert some of that into a signing bonus, they could free up between $10 and $15 million right away. That would give them immediate flexibility without having to cut anyone. Another option is DJ Moore. He has a similar contract structure, but since he just signed an extension, restructuring his deal could send the wrong message to the locker room. Teams need to be careful when restructuring recently extended contracts, as it can create distrust among players. Then there are players like Jaylon Johnson, Tremaine Edmonds, Cole Kmet, and DeAndre Swift. All of them have sizable salaries with room to restructure, but the team has to be careful. The more they push money into the future, the more they risk putting themselves in a bad cap situation down the road. That is exactly what they are trying to avoid after the mistakes of the past regime. The last thing the Bears want is to return to the days of heavy dead cap penalties. Exploring trade possibilities. Now let's talk about trades. This is where things get interesting. Some contracts are easier to move than others. If the Bears want to clear space while adding draft capital, there are a few players who stand out as the most tradable assets on the roster. The most valuable trade piece they have is Montez Sweat, but there is a catch. If they trade him before June 1st, they would take a massive dead cap hit. But if they wait until after June 1st, they would free up $21 million in cap space while only taking a $4 million dead cap hit. That is a huge difference and could be a deciding factor in whether or not they move him. DJ Moore is in a similar situation. If he is traded after June 1st, the Bears would clear nearly $21 million in cap space, but losing their top wide receiver would make things much harder on whoever is playing quarterback next season. With a new offensive system potentially in place, keeping key playmakers is essential. Jaylon Johnson is another name to watch. If traded after June 1st, the Bears would free up $16 million in cap space while only taking a $5 million dead cap hit. That is a move they could consider if they decide to rework the secondary. While Johnson is a top-tier cornerback, the Bears could explore drafting a younger, cheaper alternative to fill his spot. Then there are players like Cole Kmet and DeAndre Swift. If the Bears move Kmet after June 1st, they save $10 million while only taking a $1.6 million dead cap hit. Swift would save them $8 million while only creating a $1.3 million dead cap hit. Those are numbers worth paying attention to. Both players are key contributors, but their contracts could become expendable depending on how the roster shapes up. The value of expiring contracts. Finally, let's talk about players in the final year of their contract. These are often the easiest to move because their remaining salary is low and there is little to no long-term financial impact. Kevin Byard is one example. Trading him would clear $7 million in cap space while only creating a $1.5 million dead cap hit. Ryan Bates, who barely played last year, would free up $4 million with no dead cap hit at all. Braxton Jones, the team's starting left tackle, would clear $3.6 million if moved. But finding a replacement would not be easy. Jaquan Brisker could also be a trade piece. Moving him would clear $3.4 million with only a $600,000 dead cap hit. And then there's T.J. Edwards. Trading him would save the Bears $5.5 million while only costing them $1.5 million in dead money. The strategy moving forward. The bottom line is this: the Bears still have enough cap space to be active in free agency, but they have to be smart. Maybe they go after a pass rusher. Maybe they target a starting center like Drew Dahlman, who is expected to command around $14 million per year. Or maybe they hold on to their money and focus on the draft, where they still have multiple premium picks to work with. Every decision they make now will impact their ability to compete in the upcoming season and beyond. Ryan Poles has options, and as Bears fans, we have seen what happens when a front office mismanages the cap. The last thing we want is to go back to the days of dead money and wasted contracts. This is a new era. Smart spending, smart moves, and hopefully a winning season ahead.